So we got another day and we got another Trump scam. You guys remember when the election ended in 2020 and it was clear that Biden had won? Trump and his team were leaning into the idea, it's not over. It's not over. We're going to challenge this. We frankly won this election. And they went around fundraising colossal, gargantuan amounts of money. And what they did with a lot of that money was super sketchy. They raised like 250 million, some ridiculous amount of money. And in reporting afterwards, it came out he was just redirecting that money to himself. To himself. It didn't actually go to the things they said it was going to go towards. It's going to go to stop the steal. That's what it's going to go towards. Now, the legal gray area with all this political funding stuff is real. And so I thought perhaps they could get him legally over that, but there hasn't even, of all the investigations and the cases into him, that's apparently not one of them, which is kind of crazy because I would think that that'd be like a leading candidate of like, you're just committing fraud. Like that's all you're doing. But no, they largely gets away with it. Well, now we have another version of that. Okay. So they say in the New York Times, as legal fees mount, Trump steers donations into a PAC that has covered them. A previously unnoticed change in Donald Trump's online fundraising appeals allows him to divert a sizable chunk of his 2024 contributions to a group that has spent millions to cover his legal fees. Facing multiple intensifying investigations, former President Donald J. Trump has quietly begun diverting more of the money he is raising away from his 2024 presidential campaign and into a political action committee that he has used to pay his personal legal fees. The change, which went unannounced except in the fine print of his online disclosures, raises fresh questions about how Mr. Trump is paying for his mounting legal bills, which could run into millions of dollars as he prepares for at least 2 criminal trials, and whether his PAC, Save America, is facing a financial crunch. When Mr. Trump kicked off his 2024 campaign in November, for every dollar raised online, 99 cents went to his campaign and a penny went to Save America. But Internet archival records show that sometime in February or March, he adjusted that split. Now his campaign share has been reduced to 90% of donations and 10% goes to Save America. The effect of that change is potentially substantial. Based on fundraising figures announced by his campaign, the fine print maneuver may already have diverted at least $1.5 million to Save America. And the existence of the group has allowed Mr. Trump to have his small donors pay for his legal expenses rather than paying for them himself. Stephen Chung, a spokesman for Mr. Trump, did not answer detailed questions about why the Trump operation has changed how the funds he is raising are being split. Save America technically owns the list of email addresses and phone numbers of his supporters, one of the former president's most valuable assets, and the campaign is effectively paying the PAC for access to that list, he explained. Quote, because the campaign wants to ensure every dollar donated to President Trump is spent in the most cost-effective manner, a fair market analysis was conducted to determine email list rentals will be more efficient by amending the fundraising split between the two entities, Mr. Chung said in a written statement. The different rules governing what political action committees and candidate campaign committees can pay for are both dizzying and somewhat in dispute, but generally a PAC cannot spend money directly on a candidate's campaign, and a campaign committee cannot directly pay for things that benefit the candidate personally. For more than a year before Mr. Trump was a 2024 candidate, Save America has been paying for bills related to various investigations into the former president and his allies. In February 2022, the PAC announced that it had $122 million in its coffers. By the beginning of 2023, the PAC's cash on hand was down to $18 million, filings show. The rest had been spent on staff salaries on the cost of Mr. Trump's political activities last year, including some spending on other candidates and groups. And in other ways, that included the $60 million that was transferred to MAGA Inc., a super PAC that is supporting Mr. Trump, and more than $16 million went to pay his legal bills. Mr. Trump's rivals are not similarly splitting their online proceeds with an affiliated PAC. The website of former Vice President Mike Pence, former Ambassador Nikki Haley, and Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina direct all the proceeds to their campaign committees. The same goes for Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, former Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey, and Vivek Ramaswamy. So in other words, a lot of fishy stuff going on here, bro. A lot of fishy stuff. I will say this. If he's only doing 10%, I'm actually surprised it's that low. Usually when he goes to scam, he scams big. So that reminds me of this story. Trump used his charity money for a portrait of himself. This is astonishing. So this was when Michael Cohen was his little right-hand man. And apparently, he was paid $60,000 with money from the Trump Foundation, which is a charitable organization. And he went and bought a portrait of himself. Cohen told the House Oversight Committee that Trump told him to find a straw bidder to purchase the portrait by William Quigley, with the objective being to ensure that his portrait, which was going to be auctioned last, will go for the highest price of any portrait that afternoon. Cohen told Congress, quote, Mr. Trump directed the Trump Foundation, which is supposed to be a charitable organization, to repay the fake bidder, despite keeping the art for himself. Trump also tweeted about the sale, saying he had, quote, just found out about it. Sure you did, buddy. Sure you did. Trump's raising of $250 million for a fund that did not exist suggests possible fraud. I mean, guys, the list goes on and on here. Judge finalizes $25 million settlement for victims of Donald Trump's fraudulent university. This was a classic scam. They used upselling tactics, which is a well-known scam tactic. The list here, there's a whole article, brief history of Trump's small-time swindles. So he does the big ones and he does the little ones. I think we went through this one time. Trump's personal driver. This is the latest entry in Trump's ledger. Noel Clintron, 59, says he worked as a chauffeur for Trump and his family for 25 years, on top of a mammoth unpaid overtime bill, 3,300 hours in the last 6 years. Clintron says he only got a raise twice, after 2003 and in 2006, and then to $75,000 in 2010. The second bump came with a requirement that Cintron, I don't know how to say his name, give up his health benefits. All told, Cintron is suing Trump for at least $350,000 in damages. Philadelphia cabinet maker. This guy owned a family business that harkened back to the 1940s during the Atlantic City boom. 4 decades later, he landed a $400,000 contract to make slot machines, bars, desks, and other furniture for one of Trump's casinos. But Trump refused to pay the final bill of around $84,000. The guy's son suspected that Trump also used his clout in the industry to block the company from getting other Atlantic City contracts. This guy had to file for bankruptcy a few years later. A paint seller and event workers in Florida. After putting in long hours for a special event at Trump National Doral Miami Resort, 48 servers had to sue for unpaid overtime. The settlements average around $800 per worker, but went as high as $3,000 in one case. Guys, the list goes on. A drapery business in Las Vegas. In 2007, Larry Walters got an order for over $700,000 of curtains, pillows, covers, and bedspreads for Trump's hotel in Sin City. Walters said additional orders grew the job to $1.2 million. The developer, a joint venture LLC called Trump Ruffin, only paid $553,000. So the guy, tremendous amount of money short. Walters responded by halting work and keeping the remaining fabric as collateral. Trump Ruffin sued, and sheriff's deputies actually showed up at Walters' business to take the fabric away. Knowing they could drag the legal fight out, Walters eventually settled for $823,000, about $380,000 short of what he said he was owed. He closed the business in 2011. The list goes on. A toilet maker in Atlantic City, $200,000 contract. Jenkins only got $70,000 back. I mean, guys, I've seen a million examples. He stiffed his construction workers and electricians for one of his hotels. It's who he is. It's what he does. And now, again, the thing that's so frustrating about this is there's a news story, right? And it's not even going to be a blip on the radar, because as far as his scams go, this is actually less than the $250 million one, and that one barely made a splash. So it's like we're so used to the fraud, the abuse, the misuse of funds, the stealing, that it doesn't even make a dent. But if this was any other candidate, everybody would be like, oh, it's over. He's a con artist. Get him out of here. With Trump, he'll just skate by. This won't even be a 1-point dip, even though he's stealing his own people's funds. And by the way, let's keep it real. At this late date, using that money, which is supposed to go for his campaign, for his legal fees, I'm sure the people who donated would be like, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. All right. Don't tell me it's not a cult. Because if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.